All right, guys, looking forward to the opportunity of going out and playing Denver. You know, 3 of their games have come down to last-second field goals. They're a good football team. They're solid on both sides of the ball. And they're starting a good, solid, young quarterback. They've got a good receiver, Sutton. Got a couple of guys in the backfield that can make plays. Von Miller speaks for himself. He's one of the best in the league. They're top 10 in the league in several categories on defense and in special teams. So we've got our work cut out for us.
Well, the countdown is on, and this week again, we got to wait a little longer, this time in Mountain Time. Browns on the road in Denver at Mile High to take on the 2-6 Denver Broncos. Welcome inside the Browns countdown. I'm News 5 Sports anchor Jon Doss alongside the top dog, Hanford Dixon. He originated the dog pound, right? So you can send royalty checks directly to Hanford Dixon.
Absolutely.
Plus, bookending us there on the end is Gerard Cherry, 3-time Super Bowl champion, one half of the Next Level radio show on ESPN Cleveland. And are we still taking a look at, nope, here we are. We're back now.
Guys,
I got the beauty shot to start the show.
That's right.
By the way, I don't know if you guys are.
That's all right, because you deserve it.
Exactly.
But
Well.
I had a dream last night, so you guys please tell me my dream is true.
I hope this is a savory dream.
I had a dream that we're not 2-5, but we're 5-2.
Well, that's.
Well, we know that's not reality.
That's a dream, all
Okay,
right.
so that was a dream then. Okay, I'm awake now. I'm awake. I'm awake.
Well, the reason they're 2-5 is because last week they went on the road to the most difficult place to play in the NFL and lost to perhaps the best team in the NFL. And the Browns did not look very good on the road in New England.
They did not look good at all. And for a minute there, I thought that we had a chance of winning this football game, but I forgot that we were going against the best, talking about Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And they proved why they're the best.
Well, part of that, too, is, guys, they beat themselves. That's been a consistent theme throughout the course of the season in that, yeah, you went to New England, you played against Tom Brady, as we see right there. But when you walk away from that experience, once again, I find myself saying, who's beating who? And the return and reply should be, we are beating ourselves. That is what's going on with the Cleveland Browns right now, and a change has to be made from them stop doing just that.
Well, I know you could say we beat ourselves, but also I agree with you as far as we beat ourselves, but also the Patriots had something to do with that because just say, for instance, on all the turnovers, one of them, for instance, they didn't anticipate that play getting blown up back in the lap of Joe Bitonio. I mean, normally, he even said it himself. He said he didn't think that they were going to that the line was going to react the way he did.
But didn't it happen right in front of the quarterback?
Well,
Yes, it did, and that's what I call, well, it looked good in practice.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you run a play in practice, it works extremely well, and you forget that just because it worked in practice doesn't mean that it will work in the game, and you just go through the motions of doing what you did in practice. And that was an example of, hey, it worked in practice, let me carry through the motions, and obviously that led to a touchdown for the Patriots, and it was an extremely bad play.
and I agree because and your point, and I think Baker should have known. I mean, he's looking right at the play, and he see the play was all over with. You just eat that football. You don't just hand the ball off.
And
Worked in practice.
This is going to be a theme for us for an hour and a half today. Well, somewhat of an hour and a half today. The Patriots are good enough to beat you on their own. You don't have to help them out. And the Browns have been helping every team every week help them win.
Yeah, it has
Stop
been
shooting themselves in the foot.
It's a consistent theme, and that is the problem and issue with this football team, figuring out a way in which they can do it consistently, of playing quality, sound football, and doing things like a great drive, sustaining it, and following up with another good drive, 3 and out on defense, special teams providing field position. Who would imagine at this point that the most consistent thing that we have going on in this football team are 2 rookies in regards to the punter and the
Special
kicker?
teams, you're right.
And guys, it's the same old song each and every week. You got penalties and you got turnovers, and we continue to do it. And you know, we're tired of hearing about they're working on it. You know, we're going to take care of it in practice. It has to carry on over to the field.
But here's the thing, and tell me if you agree or not. Is it fixable? I say it is.
Yeah.
Everything that they're doing wrong is truly correctable. The question is, do they want to correct it?
I know you had a question for me, but I was going to comment on that, but I'll wait.
We're going to wait, and we're going to talk about how you correct some of these correctable mistakes, okay? But first, we're going to go to the 4th member of our team in Denver, Nathan Zegura.
Thanks, guys. Here outside the team hotel in Denver, where the team is getting ready to head on over to the Mile High City to take on the Denver Broncos, who entered the game at 2-6. But for the Browns at 2-5, we all know this is a must-win game. Now, things get a little easier, you could say. Joe Flacco, the Super Bowl winning quarterback, he is out for the Denver Broncos, and Brandon Allen will be throwing his first NFL regular season pass as the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. But for the Browns, the opponent really hasn't mattered. In fact, their biggest opponent has been themselves. Turnovers and penalties. The self-inflicted wounds have limited this team, have kept them down and kept them out of the win column for the last 3 games in which the Browns have turned the ball over at least 3 times every time out. I talked with head coach Freddie Kitchens, and he said we have to eliminate those self-inflicted wounds, cut down on the penalties, eliminate the turnovers. And if we do that, then we have a chance to take care of our business, just like the Browns did 1 year ago right here in Denver, defeating the Broncos 17-16. The keys are simple. Get out to the quick start, eliminate the self-inflicted wounds, and we can start to get the momentum building for what should be an exciting second half. But it won't be exciting if the Browns don't handle their business today against the Broncos. Back to you.
All right, there you go. It's simple, guys. That's it. What are we talking about for the next hour now? It's simple.
Nathan just told us, it's easy to do.
It's very simple. Well, look, we know that the first half of the season was kind of a murderer's row. It was the most difficult schedule in the NFL by far, right? This Browns team is facing, and that has a lot to do with the quarterbacks that they had to play. Russell Wilson, Jared Goff. We saw Tom Brady last week. Now we talk about the back half of the schedule, one of the easier in the NFL, and it's because of the quarterback play, and that begins with a guy nobody's ever heard of before, Brandon Allen, who's going to start at quarterback for these Broncos with the injury to Joe Flacco.
Guys, it's very, we talk about the injury to Joe Flacco, but isn't that funny how Joe Flacco came out and talked about their offense and how they weren't aggressive enough, don't want to win football games, and all of a sudden he's on IR. But talking about Brandon Allen, he's the guy that's
What are you saying?
You got to shut up.
You're a little skeptical about little conspiracy here?
But Brandon Allen, very smart, does not hold on to the ball. Guys, I tell you what, he's a very accurate quarterback. But you're right, we don't have a lot of tape on this guy.
Well, unless you go back to Arkansas and see what he did in college, you're really not going to see much. And obviously, he played in the preseason, so they'll look at that film and get some idea what he wants and tries to do at his best. But at the end of the day, like any quarterback, what do? Apply the pressure. If you can get a 4-man front to get after him and get in his face and make him uncomfortable, and like other young quarterbacks see ghosts out there, then you'll have some success against them. So that's how I see it going down today.
Well, you know what? Listening to some of the players talk about this guy also, and also Freddie Kitchens and Steve Wilkes, they said this guy, he can buy time with his feet, meaning this guy is, he can get around a little bit.
Well, there's a lot. One side of this, right, is you can take advantage of a guy who's never played in an NFL regular season game before. The other side of it, and you kind of mentioned it there, you don't really know what you got opposite him. You got so little film on the guy from the preseason, it kind of makes the Browns' defensive job a little more difficult.
Oh, certainly, and the hope is that they don't rest on their laurels and say, we got a young quarterback out there again. Now, we beat the Jets in a similar situation, but the thing is this, we're further along in the season, and if we continue to do what we do, we won't even beat a Brandon Allen football-led team. So it's simple. Get after this guy. Make him comfortable. And I don't care if he has the ability to run around. Put the pressure on him. Yeah. Do what we're capable of doing. We have, on a talent standpoint, one of the best defensive lines in the game. The question is, will it show up today? And if it does, I like our chances against this rookie quarterback. Heck, I like our chances against any quarterback if they show up.
And I agree with you. We have to remember he is an NFL quarterback. He is on the roster, and if he's on the roster, he can help you. And again, I agree. We can't take him lightly.
Well, speaking of talented defensive players, Ginarte Avery, really kind of one of the big head scratchers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one of the big head scratches of this 2019 season. A guy that played really well as a fifth-round rookie last year, all of a sudden seemed to vanish, and now he has actually vanished. He's been traded.
Well, the deal with Ginarte Avery is simply this. His body type did not fit what the defense coordinator, I believe, wanted to do on defense, and it was more so of a fit as opposed to him being a less-than player.
Well, I think when you look at this guy, he's more, they thought he was going to be more like an edge rusher, more like a Von Miller type player, and he just didn't come, he just couldn't play.
Well, we went from a 3-4 to a 4-3, and they want those they want to end as opposed to a rush side linebacker. That's really what it boils down to. Scheme and schematics is the reason why he's no longer here.
Yeah, because we gave him a lot of money, and he just didn't pan out.
All right, coming up after the break, we'll talk more about that Browns defense as it pertains to the Denver offense. That's next on the Browns Countdown. Tailgating beginning in Denver, Colorado, outside Sports Authority Stadium, otherwise known as Mile High in Denver. Browns on the road to take on the 2-6 Broncos. Welcome back inside the Browns Countdown. Jon Doss, Hanford, Dixon, Gerard Cherry, and this Denver offense. It looks a lot different this week than it had in weeks past, and certainly looked a lot different than we expected it might look coming into the season. They had a really talented running back in Phillip Lindsay, talented receivers with Cortland and Emmanuel Sanders and Joe Flacco. All of a sudden, half those guys are not there this week.
But yeah, I think what they're going to do with this football team, they're going to run the football. And you hit it right on the head talking about Lindsay. He's a guy that's not a very tall guy, 5'70", 190, but he plays like he's about 6 feet tall, about 215. Very explosive back. A back that can run between the tackles, Gerard, and also, don't get me wrong, he can take it outside.
Yeah, he can. He has bursts. He certainly knows what to do with the football in his hand. He came on last season very impressed with his efforts, and Denver always seems to find that running back you've never heard of in the draft, rather, and then does something of note. But also the receiving core, letting Emmanuel Sanders go and you left with just Cortland. Now, he has the best numbers on the squad, but you wonder, why make that move? What are the mentality of these football team if you're saying you let Emmanuel Sanders, when your premier receivers go, are you really trying to win football games?
But Cortland, he's a guy he's a big guy.
Great
he's
size,
a physical
yes.
guy. Reminds you of Metcalf. Who we played for we played against, a few weeks ago. But also, let's not forget the back Freeman. I mean, he's a guy that's not very explosive, but he's a guy, he's more their passing guy that they'll throw the football
Well, you know they got to lean on the run today because not only Joe Flacco out, right, with that injury, maybe it's an injury.
Well,
Hanford thinks maybe it's an injury at the voice box. He talked a little bit too much this week. But also, you're right, you trade Emmanuel Sanders. How do you expect this team to pass with your quarterback out, your number 2 wide receiver option gone off to San Francisco?
Well, I figured that you're going to match Greedy up against Cortland from the size standpoint because Cortland's 6'4" and Greedy's 6'2", so you like that matchup and not that big of a difference. But at the same time, who else are you going to go to? Because other guys on this roster are either hurt or just simply have no experience as well. So again, our defense should show up and show out. But when I say that on a week-to-week basis, it's normally not the case. So maybe I should be quiet before I get put on IR like Joe Flacco.
Well, that's why I said they're going to run the football because you're going to see what they're going to run the football in order to set up the pass to take some of that pressure off Allen. I think what you'll see with this football team, a lot of play action passes.
Well, you get the Browns. What do? You stack the box today?
Yeah, you make them beat you in the air. See what Allen can do. Why not? He's inexperienced. Let's see if he can throw with accuracy. Let's see what he does on the move. And you hope, again, that your front four is able to do the job and put a bunch of guys out there and see if they can beat you. Because the one thing I am confident of is that we can go 4 to 5 deep for us guys in the secondary that can cover.
Well, I'm laughing because I hear you say, let's see if he's very accurate. Supposedly, this guy is an accurate quarterback, but let's just hope not today, okay? Let's hope not today.
We'll find out.
Well, what's funny is that's almost exactly what Von Miller said about Baker Mayfield earlier this week. They asked Von Miller about why maybe Baker has dropped off this year from year 1 to year 2, and he says, I don't know, but I don't want to find out.
Heard that. And if we're going to talk about Baker Mayfield, the issue is really this. I truly believe this. What took place with Baker is all the expectations. And when you have high and lofty expectations and you want to go out there and play perfect and you want to play on an MVP caliber level, that puts pressure on you. And I think he's been doing anything more so as with pressure. But last week, even though we lost, he had a stretch there where he was being extremely accurate and he was back on point to what we come accustomed to or expect from him.
But, the key is, defenses didn't have any tape on him. They didn't have any tape on him last year, and this year they have tape on him. And they're able to do some things to him to confuse him. So he went on a stretch where he completed, 6 or 7 passes in a row.
And I know it seems dire right now, and Baker was in the news for things off the field more so in a press conference. But here's the thing. He went against Greg Williams. Greg Williams was a defensive coordinator here. He saw and talked about Baker Mayfield for an entire season, knew his weaknesses. He put it out there in the NFL landscape of how you go about beating him. So if anything, though Baker's had a run where it's been problematic for him, he overcomes this, he'll have something to fall back on, and he'll be a better quarterback for it.
Well, wouldn't you like to see Baker not, I don't want to say get in a fight with everybody, Let's just don't let, guys like Tony Grossi, those guys, they're veteran reporters. They've been around for a long, long time, and they know football. Yeah. Those guys know football. Just to say that these guys that don't know football, Baker, just let it go. just get your team ready and let's play some football.
We're going to talk more about Baker Mayfield later in the show. Okay, we will get to it. We're also going to talk about Nick Chubb, an uncharacteristically odd game last week, and we'll tell you why that is. That's coming up next on the Browns Countdown. Well, we'll see if the Browns can snap this 3-game losing streak on the road today. 4 o'clock kickoff in Denver, Sports Authority Field. Take on the 2-6 Denver Broncos. Welcome back inside the Browns Countdown. Jon Doss, Hanford, Dixon, Ginarte Avery. Guys, Nick Chubb has been spectacular all season long. He has been, as advertised, potentially the best running back in the NFL. Credit to Nathan Zegura, who said he would be for the first half of the season. Uncharacteristically, though, turned the ball over 2 times on back-to-back plays against New England, and they were absolute killers.
I guarantee you it was eating Nick alive.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're talking about a guy that just prides himself on carrying the football and also protecting the football. And for him to fumble, I mean, guys, what were he on, like the 10-yard line when he fumbled that football? He was pretty much almost going into the end zone, and the guy came behind him.
Baker's next to him celebrating.
But he's got to know, Gerard, and I'm sure he knows this is a learning experience for him. He's got to know that he's got to protect that ball when someone's coming behind him.
Exactly, and I believe he even looked in the screen and saw the guy at the last second, which makes it an adding insult to injury. And the one with Joe Bitonio, I mean, that's just a freak situation right there. But as you see, Nick Chubb is a quality running back, and that's actually an understatement. One of the best in the game, so I don't expect him to have a game in which he has multiple fumbles, but at the same time, I like how he responded after the first fumble, and then he broke off a 70-yard run. That should have been a touchdown, but we understand bad things just took place over the course of that game due to inclement weather.
And guys, not only is he a quality running back, from everything I heard, he's just a great human being, and just a great guy, and the type of guy that you want to root for.
The second fumble was almost suffocating.
Right.
And I was watching the first half of that game at a Browns backers club, and it was like completely took the wind out of everybody's sails. He breaks that long run after that fumble, and you said, wow, what an answer. And then to lose the football again. A guy that does not fumble the football. A guy that has been a leader for this offense since he stepped on the field in Cleveland. And to give it away twice like that, and you could see when he was walking off the field, he was disgusted with himself.
And here's the part, too.
Can't do it.
Well, you can't do it, but outside the fumbles, think about it. He amassed over 100 yards against the best defense in the National Football League.
Yeah.
So that tells you right there that he is a premier running back.
Well, I tell you what, and I expect him to come back today and just have a great game. I expect him to go run wild on this football team. And also, guys, he should be feeling pretty good right now because Georgia beat Florida
That
yesterday.
they did.
So he should be riding pretty high.
Always comes back to the SEC. Football, right? We can't go a single day without Hanford coming back to the SEC football. What about the rest of this Browns offense? We talked a little bit about Baker Mayfield. This is an opportunity, albeit on the road against a really good Denver defense. An opportunity maybe for the Browns to get back on track on offense?
Well, the question is, you're going to hopefully run the football effectively because Nick Chubb has done nothing but that throughout the course of the season. But can we expand offense? Can we have a situation, because I don't believe it's taking place yet, guys, to where Odell as well as Jarvis has great numbers and you have the complementary players getting involved as well with Baker Mayfield spreading and distributing the football to multiple players. If we see that, because this serves as a potential get back on track football game, and that could help kickstart this offense into going into that higher level of expectations that we do have for them.
Yeah, and I expect it to kick in gear today. I expect this offense to click on all phases today. I think they're going to move the football I think they're going to score some points. And I think, I'm not going to predict where I'm going to go with the game, but I think we're going to win this football game. But I expect the Baker and crew, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, I think these guys are going to have an outstanding game today.
Well, Denver's got a really good defense, but they also got a lot of injuries on that side of the football, and that's something that we'll talk about coming up. But this is a potential get-right game, isn't it?
You need them.
What is a get-right game?
Oh, a get-right game, it could be a trap game too, but in our case, we can't afford to think in that way because a get-right game typically is a game in which you're not going against as higher caliber of opponent. You've been struggling with some certain things, and you need to get it all on track, and because the opponent does not have the talent, does not have the ability that you may have or a team that you played the previous week, you can get back on track and actually run your offense in an effective manner and fashion, and from that point on, you're doing very well.
And guys, we talked about it, what's important too. We have the second easiest schedule coming up.
See,
in
that
the NFL.
scares me when I hear us talk
right
about
schedule.
Well, it is, but again, I think, all right, so say we run off 9 games in a row. That's impressive.
Which, by the way, is very difficult for any team in the NFL to do, let alone a team that's 2-5
Well, I don't
right
think
now.
we're going to
Go
run
ahead.
9 in a row.
Okay, but say we do that. Now, granted,
it'd be nice.
Our confidence will be extremely high. But you always have to have something to fall back on. And what you fall back on is how do you go against these quality teams?
Yeah.
And we didn't do well against these quality teams. Now, you'd hope that all the problems of the penalties and the turnovers at that point are out of our system, but you always want to play against a better opponent to measure yourself to see where you're really at. Even we go back to last week's game, I walk away from that experience still saying to myself, we beat ourselves more so than the Patriots beating us.
And don't we want to see Freddie smile in a press conference? I mean, it's been a while since he's actually smiled.
I want to smile.
Yeah.
I like that you say us with the Cleveland Browns, talking about the New England Patriots. We appreciate that.
No problem.
You know, it doesn't go unnoticed. Let's see, coming up after the break, Browns
Well, he didn't really
reported names.
he didn't really mean it.
Browns reported names.
Segura. Yeah.
We'll sit down with head coach Freddie Kitchens. That's next on the Browns Countdown.
Joined now by Browns head coach Freddie Kitchens. And coach, same story, right? Turnovers and penalties, you've been talking about it. Again, bit you there in New England.
It continues to be the same thing, and hopefully our guys are devoted and committed to improving the problem, you know.
And this week in practice, a few of the players, they came on Cleveland Browns Daily, they noted it's been different this week, that there are immediate serious consequences if anybody gets out of line. And look, you got to do something right to make sure it gets through to these guys.
Well, we continued, some of the things that we did during training camp. You know, those guys would, back then, it was looked at as a little being redundant, with making guys run when they committed penalties, but that's why it was for. That's what it was for, and we just started back doing it. So hopefully they respond.
As a coach, you can only do so much. You don't get to go play in the game. You're not the one jumping off sides, etc. The players this week have talked a lot about holding each other accountable. What have you seen in practice kind of from that standpoint?
That's what we've tried to get done since we've been here. So hopefully they start doing that, because that's when you're going to be at your best, is when you can hold each other accountable. They kind of police themselves, things like that. Coaches don't commit penalties unless it's a delay game penalty. So that's why I've been brought up in coaching. Some of the best guys I've worked for have had that mantra, and that's the way we're going to continue it.
You go on to Denver now, and it's obviously a critical week in the season here, taking on the Denver Broncos. They will not have Joe Flacco. They will be starting a guy who is not Brandon Allen, who hadn't started yet in the NFL. It'll be his first NFL pass. How do you prepare for somebody that you haven't seen in the NFL before?
Well, you go back and do research of them as a player, even go back as far as to look at some college tape, as far as his tendencies and things like that, and how he throws the ball, how he moves in the pocket, how he moves outside the pocket, and things like that. But we can't be concerned on who's back there. He's an NFL quarterback. He's got the ability, or they wouldn't have him on the roster.
And to help out a quarterback, you want to have a good running game, and they do, with 2 second-year players, Phillip Lindsay, Royce Freeman, combining for over 100 yards rushing per game. How do you try to slow down that backfield?
Well, we have to be accounted. We've got to account for them in the pass game and the run game. That's 2 of their favorite targets in the pass game, them and Sutton. So we've got to really focus hard on taking them away from them, and get them in situations, get up on them early, and put them in situations where they have to throw the ball.
This is a team that has not necessarily been great on offense in the Broncos, but they are good on defense. Vic Fangio, that's what he's known for. They're the number 4 defense in the NFL. You got Von Miller up front, Chris Harris on the back end. They haven't allowed a 300-yard passer yet this year. What do you see from this defense on tape?
Well, they're very active. They're very physical. They try to match you with intensity every time the ball snaps. Of course, they've got Von Miller over there that can rush the passer, so you have to make sure you have eyes and hands on him. They're pretty good in the secondary, and their linebackers are active. So, we've got a tough road ahead of us there. So we need to put a complete game together. We need to cut the penalties out. We need to take care of the football, protect the ball, eliminate the penalties, and we'll be fine in anybody we play.
Coach, thanks so much for the time, and good luck against the Broncos.
All right. Thank you, Nathan.
Back inside the Browns Countdown, Jon Doss, Hanford, Dixon, Ginarte Avery, and it's you heard Freddie Kitchens talk about it there. We've already talked about it on the show. Everybody's been talking about it the last few weeks. Killing themselves, the Cleveland Browns. How do you correct these mistakes? You got penalties, you got turnovers. Hanford, what did you guys used to do penalty issues?
Well, we didn't need a coach to correct that issue because we had a bunch of leaders on our football team, and if a guy continued to have a lot of penalties, we would correct it ourselves. I mean, we would grab the guy ourselves and have a little talk to him because, as you notice, we won football games. And it wasn't because of penalties that we lost. We made sure everybody was on the same page.
Subtle brag there from Hanford. They won football.
No, you know what I mean.
No, but you're right. Listen, when there's 10 penalties a game, which is what the Browns are averaging, it's a combination of both. You got to have coaches, you got to have leaders out there on the field that are pulling guys away saying, hey, cut it out.
Well, you definitely have to have leaders on the football field, and Hanford's absolutely correct in his assessment of what you have to do to change things. But the other part, too, in my career, I played on a very bad football team, and I obviously played on a very good football team. And with the bad football team, what I noticed is that guys didn't want to change. They were okay with the status quo if it may remain the same. While on the good football team, they self-corrected and they made those changes. So maybe, just maybe, if we don't make these changes, we really have to question whether or not guys really want to do the things necessary to win football games. Because like you just said, John, you have 10 penalties week to week on average. That's telling me you're not paying close attention to detail and you're not really applying yourself. Because you watch the film on a weekly basis more so than we do, and you walk away from experience saying, if I can change this as an individual, as a collective, you'll win football games. So that's right now what's there in the question in their minds of who really is in and who's really out.
Guys, since we're talking about Freddie Kitchens, I have a question for you guys. Did you guys hear earlier in the week when OBJ made the comment, he said that he wanted the offense to challenge the cornerback, Stephon Gilmore, more in that ball game? And then Freddie came back and his response was, he said, hey, we threw OBJ 7 balls. He caught 5 of them. I'm not getting into that. We need to win football games.
Oh, you certainly do need to win football games. And I would take Freddie's side in this matter because of the weather. You don't want to be throwing deep passes into situations like that. So for me, that made less sense to be going aerial. But I understand what Odell's saying, being more vertical in the passing game, and you'll have that opportunity today.
They did come out throwing.
Yeah,
they did. Come out throwing. We all thought immediately they would hand the ball to Nick Chubb.
Run the ball.
First drive,
run the pass.
Threw the ball 3 times. Did you hear him mention he played for some good teams?
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
He played for some teams.
Everybody says playing at Mile High is difficult, right? You hear it all the time. It doesn't matter that the Broncos are 2-6. That's a difficult place to play. Why is that? We're talking about altitude.
Oh, yeah. You certainly are talking about altitude. And when you do play there, I would say early on in the season, it hurts you more, especially if you're a starter because you haven't done much in the preseason to get those lungs right. But when you're in this part of the season, you're in football shape now, so it won't be as adverse. Now, you'll still breathe heavy. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. You'll run down on a punter or a kickoff or have a deep pass, and you'll be wanting to call somebody in to come get you what we call a blow or a break. But at this point, you're fine because you're in football shape now.
And I agree with you. I don't think it's as big a deal as people make it out to be. Obviously, we used to go out there a little bit earlier. Instead of on a Saturday, we would always go out there on a Friday, a day earlier. So to try to get used to it a little bit. But I agree, when you're in shape, you're ready to go. So it's not as big a deal as people make it out to be.
And on top of that, too, there's just something mental about knowing that you've been there 2 days prior as opposed to a day of.
Yeah.
And obviously, when we went out to San Francisco, it didn't bode too well for us. So maybe that helps our cause mentally as well as going to a game in which we're heading west, getting there a day or two earlier.
Well, a couple of guys that we're going to talk about, Greedy Williams and Denzel Ward, of course, they returned last week against New England. They'll be back again this week. But when you talk about being in football shape, when you go up to the altitude, I know they played a game last week.
Yeah.
But are they going to be fully up to speed when it comes to being in football shape and going on the road to Mile High?
I think they'll be fine because, first of all, they don't have any high-powered receivers that they'd have to worry about. That they have to go.
Cortland Sutton.
No.
I've been dissing him all week, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, but Cortland, he's a good receiver, and he's a guy. I mean, he's a big receiver, even though he's a big guy. He still can get behind you and stretch the field a little bit. But I'm saying I don't think they have those burners that they have to worry about this week.
Right. You're not going to see obviously as prolific of a passing attack as you saw last week because you're on a get-back track game because you have an inexperienced quarterback playing. But I say all that to say, they'll be winning. But guess what they can do? Money Mitch come in. TJ Carey can come in, and you will not have that grade of fall off if they do come into the football game.
You've been big on the depth of that secondary all season long. All right, coming up after the break, these two teams play each other today.
Oh.
Baltimore Ravens.
Someone say someone's favorite football
and
team.
the New England Patriots.
No.
Hanford's favorite part of the show coming up after the break.
Hey, watch out.
It's week 9 of the NFL season. Browns on the road, the 2-6 Broncos' Sports Authority Field at Mile High in Denver, Colorado. Welcome back into the Browns Countdown. Jon Doss, Hanford, Dixon, Ginarte Avery. Time now to go around the AFC North. And this is, guys, listen, we're joking about this, but this is important because all of a sudden, the Browns are in a 3-game hole to Baltimore. We talk about how easy the second half of the schedule is for this Cleveland team, but 3-game hole, 9 games to go, not a lot of margin for error. We are rooting for the Patriots today. At least 2 of us on this
No.
rooting for the Patriots.
Hold on. You guys ought to stop
Just
that.
those 2.
Hey, you guys ought to stop that. I agree with you guys. This is a big ball game.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Baltimore is a 5-2 team, and obviously the Patriots have not lost a game. This is a game that's in Baltimore. It's going to be a monster. I think it's a 7 o'clock start. But I mean, obviously we want the Patriots to be the Patriots and the Patriots to win this ball game because we cannot afford to get behind Baltimore anymore in the AFC North.
Yeah, and it obviously helps our cause as Brown supporters to see the Ravens go down today to the Patriots. But I will say this, historically speaking, the Ravens, a John Harbaugh-led football team, plays against the New England Patriots extremely well because they play a physical brand of football and they don't make mistakes. And that man right there, Lamar Jackson, is one of the premier players in the National Football League and is very hard to stop.
And you know what I like about him? They put Jackson in a position to succeed. I mean, they're not going to make him put him in situations or things that he can't handle. I mean, obviously he's a running quarterback, but he also can throw the football. And he has a lot of weapons with his tight end, so we'll see what happens.
Obviously, the Browns need to focus on winning their game.
Their game.
And you can't be scoreboard watching and see what Baltimore's doing, but the Ravens going on the road to Seattle a couple of weeks ago and winning there, that was a huge momentous win for that franchise. And if they can somehow figure out how to hand New England their first loss of the season, that's going to be a windfall for this Ravens
We have
team.
to control what we can control.
Sure.
Right, and a combination of, if the Ravens were to win today and we were to lose, that would definitely hamper our chances. And if you're a Browns player, your confidence would be shot because you're saying so. They have beat teams that we could not beat, even though we've beaten them. So what would happen the next time around? Be very much a lot of soul searching going on if you were a Browns football player on how you can beat this team. But yes, we need the Ravens to lose a lot of games moving forward in order to be in a conversation about making it to the playoffs.
But even if, you know what I was going to say, even if they don't lose, even if the Ravens don't lose, we have to control what we can control, win our game, so we keep pace.
Right.
We don't lose
The
any
Ravens
ground.
got a shot. They got a shot today.
They really
I just got those guys
They
playing.
really
They're playing
do.
good football.
They really do.
Since the Browns went there to Baltimore and beat them.
It was a wake-up call
Right,
for
it
them.
was a wake-up call for the Ravens. Unfortunately, the Browns have kind of gone in the other direction. The Steelers today hosting the Colts. No James Connors for Pittsburgh, but the Steelers still favored in this game by 1.5. Granted, it is at Heinz Field.
Well, yeah, they are playing at Heinz Field, and I think that's the only reason why they are favored. The Steelers are a good football team. They're starting to play good football right now.
They got 3 wins.
Yeah, their defense is starting to come on. And guys, the Colts, I mean, what can we say? The Colts are
Impressive.
I mean, who would have thought at this stage right now the Colts would be 5-2?
Yeah, Andrew Luck decides to retire. You thinking to yourself, well, there goes their season. But Brissett, rather, to his, I would like some brisket, Brissett, to his credit, and steps in and does a nice job.
It's a Freudian slip there from
Guys, Rudolph, I mean, you guys like the way he's managing that football team?
I give him credit, but it's defensive centric.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is a franchise that historically, right, is better in the second half of the season. You said that early on.
Yeah.
You said, well, pump the brakes on this. They're not going to be as bad in the second half of the season as they were in the first half.
And I think their defense understands that they have to create turnovers. They have to do things to help this young offensive football team out.
And here's the thing with the Steelers. They do this year after year after year. This is when they start playing their best football. Granted, they don't have Ben Roethlisberger at the helm, and they are slighted some areas, but this is what they do. They play sound football, and that's what we need to do, because if we play sound football, guess what? We will be in that conversation as a premier team in the AFC North.
And you know what they did, too? They just cut one of their wide receivers. The name eludes me right now, but as a free agent they brought in, they gave him a lot of money, like $9 million, and they said, hey, this guy had like 4 catches. You're out of here. So.
Get the Jacoby brisket shirts ready to go. Now I'm getting hungry, too. Hey, Bengals got a shot this week. Bengals got a shot this
Say
week.
what?
Oh, no, yeah, they got a bye. Hey, the Bengals need a bye. I mean, they really do. But, guys,
You
interesting
could argue
news.
they've been on a bye the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Interesting news coming out of Cincinnati, Gerard. Andy Dalton is not going to start. That is
So
not the
bogus.
answer. That is not the answer for this team, right?
Blaming the wrong guy, placing the blame on someone who should not be blamed upon. AJ Green is coming back. Why would you not give Andy Dalton a weapon and see what he can do with it? Simply put, you have a new head coach and things are struggling. They're not going to put it on his shoulders, so they're going to blame Andy Dalton, who I'm imagining saying, how can I get somewhere like Chicago or some other place where they do have playoff potential, but they need a quarterback?
And, I talk about Nick Chubb's a guy that you like and a very likable guy. Andy Dalton is that type of guy, too. You have to like him. I mean, you feel sorry for him.
Guy threw for 300 yards at a touchdown last week,
Mm-hmm.
then gets benched on his birthday, okay, just before the trade deadline. Why wouldn't you have traded Andy Dalton?
Because they do things differently, obviously, in Cincinnati. Because I'm saying the same thing. You're going to bench him now, and all of a sudden want to explore what you're going to do with this younger guy. All that's telling the rest of this team is that we have given up on the season.
Yeah.
And don't be surprised if they're 1-15 or 0-16.
They should give up on the season.
And my understanding that the owners are not happy with the city. I mean, said they have one of the worst lease going on up there, and the lease is up shortly. And there's been talk of them moving out of Cincinnati. Who knows what's going on down there? Is it down there or up there?
It's down there.
Down there. Okay. Okay.
Up there would be
okay.
Canada.
Yeah. Okay.
It's down there.
It would be up in the lake. Yeah, you do feel bad for
Unless
Andy
you live in
Dalton.
Kentucky.
Yeah.
Cincinnati could go 0-16, although it's difficult to lose all 16 games.
So we did.
Yeah.
Between
we
Cincinnati
did.
Dolphins, whose chances do you like better, right?
All right, coming up after the break, we'll talk more about this Browns offense up against this Denver D. That's next on the Browns Countdown. All right, back out to Denver, the fourth member of our team, Nathan Zegura.
All right, guys, the big matchup today, I think in this game, it's critical. It's our offense against their defense. The Denver Broncos, under Vic Fangio, have the 4th-ranked defense in the NFL and the 8th-ranked scoring defense. That should be no surprise. They're led by Von Miller up front, one of 3 Broncos to have at least 4 sacks on the season. Miller, of course, leads the NFL in sacks and forced fumbles since entering the league back in 2011. Now, the back end of this defense is also phenomenal. They have 2 safeties ranked in the top 5 at Pro Football Focus. They've got Chris Harris Jr., one of the preeminent cornerbacks in the NFL, and they have yet to allow a 300-yard passer on the season. So you're going to have to move the ball down the field methodically. They do not give up big plays. They are 6th against big plays allowed this season. So the Browns are going to have to take care of it and lean on the guy, Nick Chubb. Chubb coming off of back-to-back games with over 120 yards rushing. In fact, he's topped that number in 3 of the last 4 games. And if there is anything that Denver's susceptible to, it's the ground game. Leonard Fournette hung 225 yards rushing on this Denver team, and I think Nick Chubb will be the key. Get him going, and that can set up the play action and the big plays we've been wanting to see to Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. You saw against New England, you were starting to get the safeties in the box, but penalties shot the Browns in the foot. Last week, of their 13 possessions, 8 of them featured a turnover or an offensive penalty. That can't happen today against a very good Denver Broncos defense, gentlemen.
How about that?
Good stuff.
That's a sobering statistic. 13 possessions, 8 of them included a turnover or an offensive penalty. You cannot win football games like that. You can't move the ball, especially up against a defense that's pretty good like Denver.
Yeah, and Denver has a pretty good defense. I mean, those guys, they're really good against the pass. I mean, really good against the pass. Not so great against the run, so we should be able to run the football on this football.
Okay, so that's what this is what we said last week, especially with the weather conditions. We said, all right, Browns are going to pound the football. That's what they're going to do. They're going to run. And they
came out?
They came out throwing. The running game is a way to exploit this Denver defense, is it not, Gerard?
It is a way to exploit this Denver defense, but at the same time, we're trying to figure out what's our identity, and it seems to me that we want our identity to be passing when we're all probably saying, why aren't we running the football more? Because of the success that Nick Chubb had last week. So, yeah, this defense.
There's Jacoby.
Brisket or Brissett? Which one? Well, hopefully we are able to barbecue and smoke this Denver Broncos defense today. But in order to do that, we cannot have that statistic that Nathan just put out there where 8 of your out of 13 drives is have a penalty or a turnover involved. That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Well, guys, the key to this football game, I don't care whether we try to run in football or try to pass the ball against them, it's going to be Von Miller. We have to know where he is every single play, whether we chip him, whether we try to double team, but sometimes we're going to have to man up on this guy. We're going to have to man up on him. There's going to be times where we got to somebody's just got to block him all by themselves, and we have to win those one-on-one battles, but he is going to be the key.
You say they're still looking for their identity on offense.
Right.
This is week 9 of the NFL season.
Well, you know what? I
that
think they
surprising?
have their identity, and I believe the identity is that we want to pass the football.
They just
the New
gotta get
England
better at it.
just got to get better at it. The New England game speaks to that. Because think about it. What we come out doing in rainy, inclement weather, we pass.
Yeah.
When we've had a lot of success running the football. And I understand why we're passing. We have Baker Mayfield on the roster. We have not Antonio. We have
We got Antonio Callaway, too.
we do have Antonio Callaway. My bad, Antonio. But we have a Jarvis Landry. We have Odell Beckham Jr. We have a Hollywood Higgins. We have playmakers. So I understand why we want to pass the football. But ultimately, if it's not working, we may have to vacate the premises on that and stick more to the run, especially with Kareem Hunt coming back.
Well,
next
I
week.
don't understand why we want to pass the football. I mean, sure, we have all those weapons, but, I mean, when you look at our football team, we're at the top or we're leading the league in rushes. We have one of the best running backs in the league. And how do you pass the football? It all starts with running the football. If you want to throw the football, you have to start off running the football, and that's what we should do, and that will lead us to the pass, getting those guys.
And I know it's not about money in this situation, but you have so much invested into passing the football well when you look at the receivers you have on the roster. So if you want return on your investment, I get it. And also, too, if you want more explosive plays, which is hard to say because Nick Chubb is just as explosive as Odell Beckham Jr. or Jarvis Landry, and that's where we get caught in. And you also have an offensive-centric minded head coach / coordinator who was a former quarterback, so you know what he wants to do. He wants to pass the football.
Well, I'm sitting up here laughing because you're talking about the money in those wide receivers. What is this, Nick Chubb, second year?
Yeah.
And
He's
I
pretty cheap.
I guarantee you, we're going to have a lot of money in the running back position, especially after what Dallas just gave Elliott.
Well, we hope so. It's almost like their identity is a running football team. The identity they want
is to
be a passing football team. They got to get that figured out.
I agree with you guys.
All right, coming up after the break now, we'll transition more on the Browns defense up against this Denver offense. That's next on the Browns Countdown. Back to Denver, back to Nathan Segura.
If there ever was a time for the Browns defense to shine, to look like that dominant force we've seen glimpses of this season, it's today in Denver. The Broncos, when you saw them on the schedule early, you were thinking about Joe Flacco, Emmanuel Sanders. Well, both of them are gone. Flacco injured. Brandon Allen, a former 6th-round pick of the Jags in 2016, starts at quarterback. He has never thrown a pass in an NFL regular season game and almost has a 2-to-1 interception to touchdown ratio in his career preseason action. Emmanuel Sanders traded to the San Francisco 49ers. So Courtland Sutton remains as the top target in the passing game. He is currently 8th in the NFL with 663 yards receiving, and I bet he gets a ton of focus from the Browns secondary in this one, a secondary that looked very good with the returns of Greedy Williams and Denzel Ward. When it comes to stopping the Broncos, it's about stopping their talented second-year backs, Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman. Lindsay last year became the only undrafted free agent in the history of the NFL to make the Pro Bowl in his rookie season on offense. He trails only Nick Chubb and Saquon Barkley in yards from scrimmage among second-year players. He's a dynamic runner as well as a good receiver. Same could be said of his backfield mate, Royce Freeman. The two of them combining for over 100 yards rushing per game this season. They are also now the second and third leading receivers on this team following the departure of Emmanuel Sanders. So the Browns are going to have to be very conscious of what the Broncos are doing with these running backs. I expect to see Denver in many run-heavy looks, and so I think the Browns will play more of their traditional base defense, 3 linebackers on the field, to combat what should be a very run-heavy attack to limit the pressure on Brandon Allen by the Broncos. This is a simple one. It's a traditional one. Stop the run, get him in obvious passing situations, and then pin your ears back. Myles Garrett with 10 sacks already, having a great season, and Olivier Vernon has put together his 2 best games in back-to-back weeks, and you can get to the Broncos quarterbacks. They've already given up 27 sacks on the season. Stop the run, go get Brandon Allen. He will make mistakes, and the Browns can get a win, guys.
All right, back inside the News 5 studio, Jon Doss, Hanford, Dixon, Gerard Cherry. You talk about a get-right game. Shouldn't get much more right than this Denver offense. I mean, you got a first-time starter, no Emmanuel Sanders. Browns defense, you heard him, pin your ears back.
I think we can cause havoc today. I think we can really get after this quarterback and this offense. It all starts on the defensive line. Myles Garrett obviously have to continue doing what he's doing, and I think the other guys have to chip in and they have to help him out a little bit. I don't think these corners are going to be tested too much, but still, with the wide receivers they have, we have to try to create turnovers whenever we have a chance to come up with an interception. But I just don't see them scoring a lot of points.
Well, I love the question, ready to dominate, because that's from a mental standpoint. What's your mentality as a collective, as an individual? Do you want to go out there and impose your will on a football team in order to do that? Obviously, during the course of the week, you have to prepare for that. But that's one of the things that have been lacking once again from this defense, is that they have the ability to dominate. The question is, did they prepare themselves? Do they really want to do that? Because opportunity will be there today to do just that.
And you know what I want to see today? I want to see the defense score. I mean, we need to
turnovers.
score.
Take
turnovers.
Something.
We need to come with some turnovers, score on defense, help this offense out, keep them going.
But Nathan said pin your ears back, right? And this is dangerous for an offense like this that's going to rely on the run game and rely on those running backs, because Phillip Lindsay is one of the most dangerous guys in the NFL catching the ball out of the backfield. And, of course, we know the Browns have been susceptible to the screen play.
Yes, we've gotten beaten on how many occasions with the screen play today? Too many times. So you say to yourself, why is this still occurring? Why are we still getting beat by the screen? Because I know Steve is going over this as a defensive coordinator, saying, guys, we cannot get beat by the screen. But a lot of times when you get beat by the screen, I call it believing your own hype, in that you think you're so good that you beat that guy and you got in the backfield. And yes, we have that ability to get in the backfield, but you also have to have that collective mindset of, okay, I'm back here for a reason, way too easy. It's not because I'm one of the best in the business. So we have to pay closer attention to detail, and obviously that's been one of the major issues with our football team in doing, like, reading certain things like a screen.
And if you're studying and if you prepare for a football game, to me, a screen is one of the easiest plays to recognize, because everything happens. I mean, you just know it when the play is starting to develop.
Hanford never got beat by a screen.
I get what he's saying, though, because you got everybody silent. Screen. But when you're trying to get your numbers, and that may be the issue right there, because ain't nothing wrong with trying to get productivity. That's how you stay on the football field, right?
Yeah.
And I get that, but a lot of times you have to sacrifice that for the betterment of the team, and that would be not going after that quarterback trying to get that sack, but setting up and saying, okay, I'm reading a screen and I'm stepping back.
We've been hit with two big ones. I think one for 59 yards. And,
Titans, first game of the season.
First game in the backbreaker against the Seahawks, right?
Yeah.
The one that kind of was the dagger.
But also, everyone have to pursue to the football. Once you see that screen develop, everybody's got to go to the football.
All right, coming up after the break, Greedy Williams mic'd up in the Browns game against New England last week. That's next on the Browns Countdown.
The Browns have had their bye week, and now we get ready for the stretch run, which starts here today in a difficult situation. The Browns taking on the undefeated New England Patriots, and here we go.
Hey guys, no regrets, man. Communicate, fly around. This is the damn takeover game for us right here. All right, strip the damn ball. It's gonna come out. Scoop and score. All right, here we go. Defense right here on 3. 1, 2, 3. Defense.
Hey, get that rock. Get that rock.
Going back into the game, I just felt like I had a lot of adrenaline because, I missed 4 weeks. And, that's just hard on me because I never missed a game. So, just getting back into it, just competing against one of the greatest, players that, ever played at that position, which is Tom Brady. So, I was just ready to pump, and ready to, just to get at him.
We up, baby. We up.
Defense up, baby.
We up, baby.
I did very well, just as far as like that one play. That's something like if a big play happened on me, it kind of eats me up. But I know there's always a lot of football left in the game. So it's just my response, and just competing one against a great receiver. Dorsett. He was like he was one of the guys, just complimenting me, as far as like me making plays on him and stuff like that.
Hey, that's a good little push. Stop playing. Come on, boy. Stop playing. Yes, sir. Let's go, man.
Our expectation was to play them straight up, a lot of men, try to, you know, give our offense a chance, you know, just to, you know, score as many points as they can. And we came and did what we supposed to do, which is, you know, just clamp them up and, you know, make Brady make tight throws.
How old are you?
I'm 21. I'm a rookie, baby. Come on now.
Rookie, but 21. God, I wish I was 21.
I'm back. It ain't gonna be all day. Let's get it.
It was amazing, you know. He was, you know, Tom Brady's picking on him. You know, he was trying, you know, just to get at me. So, you know, with my competition level, you know, I just, you know, I was talking all that stuff.
Hey, keep throwing that. Keep throwing that.
Like I was just, you know, just in his face, let him know, like, you know, I'm a guy, you know, gonna compete every place. So, you know, after a while, you know, he started respecting, you know, what I do and, you know, how I do it.
Keep playing with me.
Obviously, like I said, man, that was about one of the smartest players I ever been up against. And, you know, he was just out there, you know, just audibling into different things and, you know, making their offense successful.
Play the damn ball, man. Let's go. You're good enough to cover any.
Yeah, I got it. I got him.
It's 4th down, and they'll try a field goal. Snap back, ball down, block. Nice block. Gets out, Ward blocked it.
I'm saying, bro.
Keep playing. Keep playing.
Denzel, like my big brother, you know, a guy like him on the side of you, you know, just, you know, always there to encourage and, you know, just be there for you. You know, that's something like, you know, you can win with.
Stick together out here, y'all. Good. Stick together. Stick together. Right.
And we want a victory, man. No matter how it comes out, you know, we just want to win. And, you know, like, as far as the defense perspective, I know, you know, Wilt's going to be on us about, you know, getting turnovers because, you know, we kind of lacking in turnovers. So definitely going to be our mindset, you know, just go get the ball and, you know, bring the victory home.
Greedy Williams didn't really talk like a rookie, does he?
Not at all. I love it.
Chirping at Tom Brady, Julian Edelman. These are Super Bowl MVPs and Hall of Fame.
Hey, you have to love that kid. I mean, you have to love his energy and everything he brings to the table. Obviously, we know he can cover because if he can't cover, he wouldn't have been drafted as high as he was drafted. But I think the future's pretty bright for him.
Do we think maybe Ward and Williams are going to be up to speed this week? They looked pretty good last week, although Denzel dropped that potential interception in the end zone, which anytime Tom Brady gives you that, you got to take it. But is this secondary finally, at least the cornerbacks at full swing here?
Oh, it's getting there. And again, they're not going to see a more prolific passing attack and from a scheme and just knowing what to do with the football than what they saw last week because you went against the best, arguably ever.
No interceptions last week, which means
but opportunities.
You all had to pay for your curly fries. Anytime the Browns get an interception, you can pick up a free small curly fry the next day at your nearest Arby's restaurant. All you got to do is mention the interception. Only at participating Cleveland locations. Limit 1 per guest. Arby's. We have the meats. They got to get turnovers. This is an opportunity to do so against a very young, inexperienced quarterback today.
Yeah, like I said, you know, this guy, I think he's going to throw us a couple, even though he's a very accurate. They said he protects the football pretty good. But again, just like you said, I don't care who the quarterback is. You put a little pressure on him, he'll crack.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the key to it because we have guys that can cover. I am confident of that. The question is, will the pressure be there to help them out in the coverage skill set?
I like this kid, Greedy.
I like him a lot from what I saw.
I like Williams. Yeah. I like.
I'm glad you finally like somebody.
Hey!
All right, coming up after the break, our Sugardale Hot Minute. But first, is this the easiest trivia question you've ever seen? We're giving away no awards for getting this right. Which running back leads the league in yards per game through Week 8? Is it Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, or the guy that plays for the Browns, Nick Chubb? Answer next on the Browns Countdown. All right, time now for our Giant Eagle trivia answer. Which running back leads the league in yards per game through? You better get this right.
Chubbs. D.
I'm going
Nick Chubb.
Cleveland.
Really good list there. Dalvin Cook, McCaffrey, they've been good. Through Week 8, he's averaging 105.4 rushing yards per game, despite facing 6 of the top 15 run defenses in the NFL. That's impressive.
And you going to tell me we're not a running football team?
They better be. Time now for our Browns Hot Minute presented by Sugardale.
All of them is equally as important, from the first one to the last one. I just think that now we're in this situation and we got to find a way to get out of this, whatever this is that we're in.
They're very good, very big, very physical, and they run to the ball and they play hard. So it's going to be a challenge for us, but we look forward to it.
Treat them all the same, just execute the game plan.
You want to win, you want to be part of the solution, and you never want to be the problem. So I think we're all just trying to find the solution right now.
Guys are buying in. I think there's an urgency here. And, eventually we got to start winning some games. That's the goal of this team. We got to win this week and go 1-0.
Right now, it's about this week. It's about us. It's about doing everything we can to go find a way to win in Denver.
All right, find a way to win in Denver. That's what Baker Mayfield did last year, where the Browns team really needed it. They were still mathematically alive for the postseason race, and Baker and co. went on the road last year and got the win there at Mile High. Baker needs to bounce back this week after another rough turnover game.
Well, everyone says that Baker needs to get his swagger back. Has he lost his swagger?
He's got a swagger.
The way he's talking it to everybody, I think he still have his swagger. But you know what, guys? He's got to carry it on to the field. I mean, he's trying to get everybody going and make them have a good practice, but he's got to carry it on over.
Those numbers right there may be the surprise of the NFL season.
Number 6.
6 touchdowns, 12 picks.
Yeah, and it obviously matches his uniform number. But here's the thing, guys. I say a continuation game. Take out that one flip of a forward pass to the New England defender, and he had a pretty good game from a passing standpoint. And also, when you consider the field conditions and what was taking place that day, he was accurate with the football. So he's starting to get on track, and you couldn't ask for a better situation other than the fact that, hey, we're going against a football team that has a solid defense. They pay the pass pretty good. But he has to have some confidence to say, you know what, I can move the football against this team because I did against one of the best in the business last week.
Well, he's got to get that confident look back in his eyes, and I don't see it right now. I just don't see it when I see him on the football field. I just don't see that look because I know a couple of those plays at the end of the game, they were chasing him, and he just kind of gave up and just rolled over. Baker's got to be Baker. He's got to be running all over the place. He's got to be throwing downfield, hitting his receivers, and that's what we got to have from him today.
One guy that's got no problem with the confident look in his eyes is Myles Garrett right now. He's rusher to the passer, just about as good, if not better, than everybody else in the NFL. Another opportunity for him against an inexperienced quarterback this week.
Well, I know last week he wanted to add another quarterback and all the quarterbacks that he sacked, and I don't think he had sacked Brady yet, and he was not going to be finished with that game until he got him, and he finally got him somewhere in the third or fourth quarter. But Myles Garrett is playing phenomenal right now.
Well, the deal is, yes, Myles is dominant. He's doing what he needs to do. He leads the NFL in sacks. We'll tie with it for 10, and that's some great numbers, and he's definitely on track to do some major things. But, guys, I need him to have the rest of these guys following suit with him because I'm figuring that if you do that, we'll win football games more often than not on the defensive line.
Have you guys noticed, though, talking about Myles Garrett, how he's eliminated the penalties? Because I think in the first few games,
it was bad.
He had a lot of penalties. Here lately, you don't hear Myles Garrett showing up with penalties.
It's possible.
Yes.
And now this is kind of the second time that you've alluded to it. We were watching that Greedy Williams mic'd up. The body language of this Browns defense needs to be better.
Yeah, because you see guys that seem Greedy Williams makes a heck of a play. And guys are kind of like, whatever, get up, rookie, go about your business. And they can't, it's like, where's your celebration? Where are you fired up? So that might be signs of some disparity taking place. But again, today represents an opportunity. If the offense does their part, the defense does what they need to do, and the special team just continues to do what they've done all season, then you'll see more celebrations. But that was a sign that you have to take note of, like, okay, this guy just made a great play out there. Why aren't you celebrating?
Everybody, go to him.
Get right. And it would help if they got some turnovers.
Yes,
maybe they could take some group pictures, like everybody else in the NFL. All right, coming up after the break, injury report.
Slide down.
Who's in?
Slide
Who's
down.
out in this Browns-Broncos matchup? That's next on the Browns Countdown. Week 9 of the NFL season, Browns on the road at the 2-6 Denver Broncos. Take a look at the injury report. For Denver, we talked about it. Joe Flacco out. Brandon Allen never started a game in the regular season in the NFL in at quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Demarius Randall still out for these Cleveland Browns. They just cannot get fully healthy in that secondary. Maybe it doesn't matter today. Back inside the Browns Countdown. Jon Doss, Hanford, Dixon, Gerard Cherry. Demarius Randall out again this week. That's really the quarterback of your secondary,
Right.
missing a second consecutive game.
Yeah, but I don't think that'll hurt us today. Obviously, if this is a game for him to get healthy in order to be able to come back, I think this is the game. Obviously, he's a very important part of the secondary. He is the quarterback back there, but I don't think this game is going to hurt us.
Oh, so you say they don't need him?
Well, no, I'm not saying we don't need him. We do.
Should negotiate his
No,
next
no, we need him.
I get what you're saying too, though. But and obviously you're saying in jest too, John. And I feel what you're saying, Hanford, because last week you went against the best in the business,
and they were okay.
And you got to figure you're not going against the best in business because we don't have enough tape on him to make that declaration, obviously. So whatever you did last week, you should be okay this week, as long as you just don't take him for granted. Think you just go out there and play if you don't bring it to the game.
Because again, we have to look who's quarterback in this football team today. I mean, this guy's not going to better not light it up against us.
Well,
I'm saying he's not going to. He better not.
And maybe that's glass.
But
and
you
maybe,
get my point.
maybe the weather obviously had something to do with it, but the Browns' defense was not the issue last week. The Browns' offense basically handed New England 14 points, but the Browns' defense, especially the secondary, looked pretty good against Tom Brady, and that was without Demarius Randall, too. Hopefully they can continue that. Joe Flacco is the big absence for the Broncos, and that's why they hand the football over to this Brandon Allen kid.
Joe better keep his mouth shut a little bit.
He's on IR.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Say what he wants.
Yeah, he can say whatever he wants to say right now, but that's why he's on IR, because he was opening up
This is
his
the
mouth.
point in the year when teams are moving those veteran quarterbacks to the bench. We already talked about it with Andy Dalton, and they're bringing in the young guys. As they say, at this point, our season's over. Let's see what we got in the young.
They're waving the white flag, and that's another thing, too. The players on this Broncos team recognizes that. Now, the question is, will they respond to that in like and kind and do what the management probably wants them to do, or will they go out there and play football? Now, if they want job security, they better go out there and play football. And the one thing that we cannot do, understanding the situation as a football team, is go out there and assume that you're going to get a half-hearted effort from this Broncos football team.
And then you look at Joe Flacco. I mean, he's been in the league 12, 13 years. You know what he can do. But, guys, let's look at this, too. He hasn't got it right yet. Talking about John Elway. I mean, John Elway is the one that's bringing these quarterbacks in. Sooner or later, he's going to hit on one of those guys.
Well, hopefully it's not
today.
to do.
Right.
He may be the Michael Jordan of football management in that a great player but cannot acquire talent.
These guys are getting paid to play football today, too. Okay, they're getting paid, too. All right, coming up at the break, we'll wrap things up. These guys' winning mix plus their top dogs. That's next on the Browns Countdown. Back inside the Browns Countdown, Jon Doss, Hanford, Dixon, Gerard Cherry. Hanford admiring all the pictures behind us here, none of which include Hanford.
I was going to say, and I want you guys to know, every day when I come into the set here, the first thing I do is go back and look at that board to see if there's been a change. And there's no change. I thought you had some pull over.
We changed some of the offseason. We'll see what we can do.
Okay.
We'll see what we can do. We got some young players up there. Maybe we need to kick off.
Okay.
All right, time now for our Vitamix winning mix. Hanford, Gerard, you guys are actually going to say similar things here. Hanford can't turn the football over.
No, you cannot. And when you look at our football team, that's the things that have been really, really hurting us. Here you see Baker right there throw another interception. I think, what is he, 11, 12 interceptions? 12 interceptions on the year. Here's another one. He's throwing it. We don't have a guy anywhere in the field. And first thing you hear Freddie Kitchens when he have his press conference, that's what he talk about, the turnovers and the penalties with this football team. Guys, we're going to win this football game today. We have to eliminate the turnovers.
And eliminating the turnovers, Gerard, is half, really, well, not even half. It's an element of playing a clean football game, which is your winning mix.
Exactly. And when you play a clean football game, that means you're a disciplined unit. You're going out there making plays. You're not turning the football over. You're not getting unnecessary penalties. Now, we understand, yes, the referees are going to sometimes do some things that aren't the actual right call, but that's part of the game. But when you're self-inflicting those wounds, when you have 8 out of 13 drives having a penalty or a turnover in it, that's not a clean football game on the offensive side. On the defensive side, too, when you're having hands to the face mask and things of that nature, pass interference call, I can live with that. But play a clean football game where you complement each other, and you'll do all right.
All right, time now to go back to Denver. Nathan Zegura and his winning mix.
All right, guys, the winning mix is simple. We know all about the turnovers and penalties, limiting the self-inflicted wounds. But today, I think it's all about a fast start for the Browns. You get out to a lead on this Denver Broncos team, you win. When an opponent scores first, Denver loses. When the opponent's ahead after the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, Denver loses. In fact, if you just get to 20 points, I look at this as a race to 20. The Broncos 0-4 this season when an opponent scores 20 or more points. So it's simple. Get out to a fast start like we did against Seattle. Pin your ears back. Go get Brandon Allen. And let's get on this plane and fly back to Cleveland with a big win and get to 3-5.
All right, thank you, Nathan. Hanford, your top dog, wide receiver for the Browns. Where's number 13?
OBJ. Guys, let me say this. OBJ, it's time. We need you. We need a big game from you. You have not had a big game since the second game of the season. Today is the day. Even though they're pretty good against the pass, we got to have a big game from you.
That's right. That's right.
Gerard, bounce back game, your top dog.
Joe Schobert. We need you to make sure that you stop Lindsey and get on Schobert.
Remember what I said?
done.
Remember what I said? Hanford dislikes most everybody.
No, I love him. I love him. We need a big
Look what he
game.
did to Lamar Jackson.
I know. We need
Guys,
a big
remember,
game.
every week, next week, we're going to be back out at First Energy Stadium. The Browns finally back home for a 1 o'clock kickoff against the 5-2 Buffalo Bills, which we didn't expect. Remember, 10:30 to noon, live every Sunday.
Guys, I can't see us losing this game. I can't see it. No way, no how.
It's a must-win.
It's a must-win, and we will win.
It certainly
this game.
is.
Right now, the percentages for the Browns to make the postseason are around 18% at 2-5, and that's because they have an easy second half of the schedule. If they fall down to 2-6, the Giants right now are 2-6. Their percentage of making the postseason is 2%. You better win the game today. They're going to do it.
Well, guys, I just want to say I have bad memories of these Denver Broncos. So do me a favor, guys. Win this one for me today, please.
Just do it for him.
Yeah. Also remember, too, a lot of guys on this team from the Broncos played against the Browns last year, and they weren't happy about them celebrating on the football field. Right. Of course, so it's going to be a spirited game today.
Right.
It's not an easy place to play.
No, it's not.
We've already talked about it. They're going to win?
Yes, they're going to win.
You already said it.
No question.
For Gerard Cherry, Hanford Dixon, Jon Doss, thanks so much for watching the Browns Countdown. Enjoy the ball game.